A song of David. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Mizmor leDavid, Hashem roi lo echsar, Bihinos deshe yahar bitzeni, al mei menuchos yanahaleini. Good evening, Toastmasters and guests. I've just recited the beginning of one of the most famous chapters of Psalms, recited at many funerals, including both Jewish and non-Jewish funerals. I also sang the beginning of a song sung by Jews around the world during the third Sabbath meal. Those of you who are familiar with the Hebrew know that these are actually the same exact thing, the beginning of Psalm 23. Tehillim, or Psalms in English, is a book of 150 ancient chapters of poetry. According to tradition, most of Tehillim was composed by King David. Many of the chapters, including chapter 23, actually start with a phrase such as Mizmor leDavid, a song of David. Tonight, I'll give you a little more information about Tehillim, but first, let me tell you why I'm talking about the songs of David. As we all know, on October 7th, a terrible tragedy happened to Israelis of all faiths, but most of all Jews. A common response of Jews for thousands of years to tragedy is prayer, and particularly the saying of Psalms, Tehillim. Such as the rabbi might say, 23, 79, 121. He isn't telling a joke about prisoners telling jokes. He's telling the congregation, this is the next chapter that we are going to say. And then they say it responsively. In my neighborhood, we've had a number of group recitations of Tehillim in the past several weeks. The first one on October 9th had more than 500 people on site and hundreds more on Zoom and YouTube. The most recent, in a sense, was yesterday, when 290,000 people from around the United States gathered together in Washington, D.C. to hear political speeches and to hear messages of support, but in the middle, Psalm 121. One of the more interesting variants of saying Tehillim or Psalms for Israel right now is the WhatsApp group in my neighborhood. It started on October 8th. But I'm not really into this idea of say one and then say another and take turns. It's just not really my thing. But I joined up anyway, and I'd watch the numbers go by. Finally, on Friday afternoon, October 20th, I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I announced to the group, one, instead of just a few numbers, I said 1 to 150. I plan to go through the entire book of Tehillim on Shabbos. I challenge anyone who has the time to do the same. Few people reacted with heart emojis. I inspired others to recite, to prepare sections like 1 through 10, 11 through 20, and so on, so that through the group on every Friday afternoon, they would say the whole thing. But nobody else copied me for saying everything all at once, something I had never, ever done before. I started Friday night. I started reading. But instead of just saying the Hebrew, I was determined to actually have this be more meaningful. I pulled out the art scroll Tehillim that sat on my shelf for decades, hardly touched. And I started reading. I said each chapter in Hebrew because that was the agreement of the group, but I also read almost every one of them, especially the ones I wasn't so familiar with, in English. And then I dabbled in the commentaries. Every page here is filled with, can't really see it so well, filled with commentaries from many different sources from thousands of years. And I learned a lot. So let's talk a little bit more about and by the end, by sundown Saturday night, I had completed all 150. As with anything a few thousand years old, there's a lot of controversy. The Jewish traditional understanding is that David either wrote or compiled from previous writers such as Abraham and Moses and the sons of Korach, wrote or compiled all 150. There are other people, Bible critics and so on who decide that no, it couldn't be that old. It couldn't have all been one person. But there's general consensus that the Psalms are at least 2,500 years old. They're divided into 5 books with between 17 and 44 chapters each. They are poetry and they are also songs. There were songs starting in the times of the temple. The Levites would sing some of them every day, and they would set them to music. And in fact, many of the Psalms start out with a reference to one or more musical instruments. I was amazed as I read through this. There were 7-stringed instruments and 8 and 10 and cymbals and all kinds of different things. I did not know that there were so many musical instruments thousands of years ago. But today, in addition to saying them in times of trouble, Jews worldwide say these as part of prayers. I went through the prayer book, and by my count, there are at least 30 chapters that Orthodox Jews, many others, will say over the course of a week. In addition, there are certain sections that are very joyous. So chapters 113 to 118 are called Hallel, which is read on certain special holidays, including yesterday, which was Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the Jewish month. But the amazing thing about Psalms and why they are said by people, Jews and non-Jews, in times of trouble and in times of joy, is that they have so many different themes. They track through David's life, and I was amazed at the interpretations explaining how each particular psalm represented a particular different episode in David's life. And these are human emotions, where most of the other books of the Bible refer to stories of, Abraham begat Isaac and so on, and different things that happened to different people over the course of thousands of years, or have lists of commandments of things for Jews to do, or sometimes for non-Jews. Psalms is a book of emotion. It's a book of poetry and helps speak to all of us. It's good to be the king, but none of us is King David. But he left a legacy that has helped Jews and really all humankind to work through our emotions and our troubles, our sorrows and our joys. Thank you.